All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Time right now as we broadcast through the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios, 418. We are here live on location today at Blend Bar and Bistro, 911 NJ 33, Hamilton Township in New Jersey. And it is a Football Monday show, baby. We're ready for some football tonight. We had to wait, no Eagles yesterday, but we're going to go out to Chicago right now for the Eagles and the Bears and talk to a former Bears guard, their color analyst on their radio broadcast right now, and a Super Bowl champion in Tom Thayer, who joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Tom, good to talk to you. Thanks for a few minutes, and how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Zach. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing great, and I love that we have some Eagles and Bears tonight on Monday Night Football, and I'm also intrigued to see how Carson Wentz performs in week number 2. Week number 1 played very well against the Browns, but you do have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt because it is the Cleveland Browns who just absolutely stink, as you know. But as an outsider, what was your impressions of Carson Wentz in week number 1 as you get ready to see him tonight against your Chicago Bears?
I think he did a great job, and I'm really impressed that you can obviously see there's a good relationship between he and Doug Peterson. And, Doug being an ex-quarterback in the league for quite a while and being with several different teams, I think he brought a little bit of his experience in the NFL to a young quarterback who, made some great throws into the end zone. And, hey, whether you're playing Cleveland or Kansas City or now Chicago, I think for the first time around in the regular season, he was really impressive.
I'll tell you, the thing that I was most impressed about is that that's a rookie in his first game, and he looked just so cool, calm, and collective. Now it's a little bit different. It's Monday Night Football. You're going up against a team that is better than the Cleveland Browns. In week number 2, and you're a player that has played in some big games, what are those emotions leading into a game, prime time, when everyone's watching you on Monday Night Football?
I don't, Monday Night Football, it's always exciting because when you're a young football player growing up, that's what you always dream of is playing on Monday Night Football. But I think it's more the environment here. I think they're going to have a really supportive crowd on behalf of the Bears. So now Carson Wentz is going to have to go to the line of scrimmage every offensive play and not be able to make those adjustments verbally. He's going to have to make sure everybody breaks the huddle with an understanding of their responsibility. And it's going to limit his access to, an audible at the line of scrimmage. So those are the things that's going to make it difficult in week 2. But, again, I think going back to Doug Peterson, he's not going to give him anything too complicated. He's not going to make him make decisions that are going to factor in the other 10 guys in the huddle and maybe change their responsibilities. And I'm not saying he's going to go there with a simple game plan, but every time they break the huddle, they're going to know exactly what their responsibilities are. And hopefully, Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator of the Bears, is going to give him something to think about at the line of scrimmage. And the Bears have the athletes to be versatile. And if the versatility can confuse a young quarterback, hopefully the Bears can take advantage of that.
And you also know that just being in the NFL, a quarterback's best friend is also a running back. And Ryan Matthews isn't the most consistent back because he hasn't been able to stay healthy in his NFL career. How are the Bears from a run defense perspective? Because I'm sure the Eagles, although they threw a lot last week, don't want to throw that same amount with Carson Wentz and really get that synergy going. And a good game that Ryan Matthews did play last week. So how about the Bears' run defense?
The Bears were really challenged last week in Houston, and Houston ran the ball pretty well against them in the first half. They played a little better in the second half, but I think the Bears' defensive line has to play a lot better. They have to be more disruptive into the backfield. They have to put pressure on the running game. But, I think the best thing the Bears did is throughout in the offseason, they went and signed Danny Trevathan and Jarrell Freeman, 2 inside linebackers that have really upgraded the intelligence of that position on this football team. Yes, last week Jarrell Freeman had 17 tackles. Danny Trevathan had another 11. So if the defensive line can, get into some penetration of the backfield and then the linebackers can step it up and, limit the success of the running game, put pressure on the quarterback, that's definitely going to help them. But the Bears defense have to prove they can do it. And, last week was a big challenge. So hopefully, again, with the support of the crowd noise, it can slow that offense down a little bit.
Tom Thayer joins us, the former Bears guard, Super Bowl champion, now as a color analyst on their radio broadcast team. Does a tremendous job calling the Bears games. Now, let's get to what I think the key is for tonight. and that's the offensive line and the defensive line play, the battle in the trenches, the number one big football cliche, but it's the number one truth. Last week, your offensive line did not do a good job in protecting Jay Cutler. I know they went up against the Texans that has a very lethal pass rush, but what went wrong last week, and how do you adjust if you are the Bears going up against another good defensive front in the Philadelphia Eagles?
You got to run the ball more. And, they could Jeremy Langford had 17 carries last week. Kadeem Carey had 1 carry. And that's not the blueprint of success for the Bears offense. They need to have 35 rushes somehow between the two. And that's the way you're going to keep the balance, consistent for the offense, and maybe, keep a little bit, keep the defensive line off balance. Because you sit here and try to throw the ball against this Philly defensive front 35 times, you're asking for trouble. And so right now, if, the Bears last year, when they got the best out of Jay Cutler, it was because they were able to run the ball effectively. And if they can run the ball, with some efficiency tonight, it's going to help Jay Cutler as much as it will help the offensive line.
The best part about this Eagles defense is their defensive line and just the depth at that position. But the preeminent player on that defensive line is the man that's played a plethora of money in Fletcher Cox, who is their big-time defensive tackle for the Eagles. As an offensive lineman, how would you go about blocking Fletcher Cox? Because that usually is an impossible task for one offensive lineman in the league.
You're right. I mean, he had 104 tackles last year as an interior defensive lineman, and that's super impressive when you sit there and you watch him on tape and you look at everything that he can do. If I was the offensive lineman that was facing him, I would just tell the lineman next to me, make sure that you give me a hand every time. And I just need a hand for an instant, because if I can, create a stalemate at the line of scrimmage, get my hands back inside and start and try to gain some control of them, it's definitely going to help you. But, the Bears have a rookie center that's starting his second game. They have a left guard in Josh Sitton that's starting his second game with the Bears after his release from the Green Bay Packers. And they have Kyle Long, who didn't play very much in the preseason. So the offensive line is still in a process of gelling. But, again, I would still make sure that I have double awareness of Fletcher Cox, no matter if it's a pass protection or a running play.
And then from the Bears' perspective, if you could buy Jay Cutler time tonight, he should be able to pick apart that secondary of the Eagles with no Leotis McKelvin. That's why that battle in the trenches is so key, because the Eagles are not healthy at the secondary spot. Yes, they have good safeties, but I'm talking about more of the corners. If they can't get that rush going tonight, that's where Jay Cutler is going to have some success.
Yeah, as long as Kevin White comes to play. Last week in Houston, everybody was waiting to see what former first-rounder Kevin White, who missed all of the season last year, how he was going to complement Alshon Jeffrey and Zach Miller and Eddie Royal. And, he kind of underwhelmed the Bears fans. So if Kevin White can come out here and be the 6'4" receiver that he is and help the rest of the receivers out here, yeah, maybe you will see some big numbers put up by Jay Cutler. But it's still going to go through the running game. That's going to help the play-action passing game be an influence at the line of scrimmage, and then give an opportunity to throw the ball downfield. So it's still some, the Bears are going through some growing pains that if they can, make an impression this week and everybody can get involved, I think they'll be able to do some better things offensively.
Wrapping up with Tom Thayer, who joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey Eagles and the Bears tonight in Chicago. So you played for Mike Ditka. I see Coach each and every year down at the Super Bowl location for the great charity work that he does with Gridiron Greats. And Coach is still going strong, as you know, at the age of 76. Describe to me what it was like to play for the very colorful Mike Ditka.
It was the most intimidating time of my football life because, I started every game for Ditka for 9 years, but every day I went to practice, I thought that was the day I was going to get cut. And I have so much respect for him. I love playing for the guy, but he was super challenging and make sure that you practice like it was a game. And I do think that's why our team was able to accomplish a lot. But when you have guys like Walter Payton and Singletary and the rest of that crew, he was the most demanding guy in our locker room because of, what he was able to do from a point of being a great Hall of Fame player and coach himself.
And, in Philadelphia, Buddy Ryan is just beloved. And unfortunately, Buddy did pass away this year. But, with Buddy Ryan, he wasn't on your side of the ball. But still, what were your interactions like with Buddy Ryan? Because he was always truthful with people and would always give it to players as well.
Yeah, Buddy Ryan was another guy. You always tried to earn his respect because if Buddy Ryan knew your name other than just being a number, you knew that he recognized that you did have talent and that you were a good player. And so, that was the same respect that you wanted to get from Ditka and you wanted to get that from Buddy Ryan. And, to me, it's remembering Buddy Ryan as much as living or playing against the greatest of all time in Reggie White in that defense that he led here in Chicago a couple times that, it was an awesome display of defensive talent when he had that crew over there in Philly.
And, the Bears will always be synonymous with that season that you guys went on and also the play of the running back in the great Walter Payton. What are some memories that come to mind when someone asks you about Walter?
I grew up in Chicago my whole life, so I was kind of living through hero worship. When I had a chance to be a part of an offensive line that blocked for Walter Payton, I was still in such awe of him just as a fan of his that it was different for me. I never felt like he was a peer. I always felt like he was a superhero, and I was just lucky enough to stand alongside of him at times.
I've talked to Dennis McKinnon about this over the years. How angry were the players on that Bears team? Yes, you win the Super Bowl, but Walter didn't get that touchdown. There's a lot of controversy there. Can you clear that up for us a little bit?
Yeah, I think it was just disappointment because you can't be angry after you win a Super Bowl, but it was just disappointment because, I went back and after 30 years looked at the video of the conclusion of the Super Bowl, and Walter Payton walked off the field by himself. He wasn't surrounded by hundreds of members of the media like he should have been. And I think that's the thing about it. It was just a disappointing factor of that game that we won it. We put a lot of points on the board. Guys like William Perry were able to touch the football, but it was New England. They were so determined to stop Walter Payton that they were able to do it successfully. But it was just a disappointment because of anybody that's ever come through the NFL, he's the one guy that should have been rewarded with Super Bowl greatness because that's what he was. That's the commitment he gave to the game.
Last one for Tom Thayer, who has a broadcast to do tonight between the Bears and the Eagles Monday Night Football. I just want to give you the scene and perspective in Philadelphia a little bit before we let you run. A few weeks ago, no one was really looking forward to this football season because we were going to have Sam Bradford at quarterback, and then the next thing you know, Carson Wentz, after the Bradford trade, everyone then gets behind Carson Wentz because they're going to be able to see him for a full 16, barring any injuries. And I thought it was a brilliant move by Howie Roseman to be able to get back a first-round pick and then also a fourth for Sam Bradford. And then last night, you see Sam Bradford in his debut for the Vikings light it up. And, yes, Adrian Peterson did go down, and we could see what the long-term ramifications are of that. But as someone that does have the Vikings in their division now with you doing the games in Chicago, what do you view of the whole scenario with Sam Bradford, and how do you think he'll play in Minnesota? Because that's been his one problem in his career. It's been the consistency or the lack of it with Sam Bradford because of how much he's been hurt.
I think right now you're going to see defensive game plans change because they don't have the threat of Adrian Peterson in there. So I think it's going to put more pressure on Sam Bradford. To me, if I was Philly, I would feel like I just won the lottery. Getting rid of Sam Bradford, but getting the draft choices back, I want to see the value of the picks they make with the Sam Bradford trade. Minnesota, you go in there with that new stadium, it's going to be the most hostile environment within our division. But I do think the pressure is really going to be turned up on him. Now the next defensive coordinator gets the option to prepare for that team without Adrian Peterson.
Tom, best of luck on the call tonight. Thanks so much. Let's do it again real soon.
Thanks, Zach.